birthplace. In 1956, they moved to Richmond, California. Grandma was pregnant and had Daryl a couple of months later. During their first 13 years in California, they lived in both Richmond and El Sobrante. My dad, along with his siblings, attended St. Paul's Catholic Church in San Pablo. In 1963, he got another little brother, Harlan. Dad attended De Anza High School, where he wrestled until he dislocated his shoulder. Grandma said on one family trip to North Dakota in the car that Gary had the other kids entertained and laughing the whole time. She said he always had the personality of keeping people happy and laughing at such a young age. In 1969, the family moved to Jenny Lynn in Calaveras County during Dad's senior year of high school. Upon coming to Calaveras County, they met the Newby family. Michelle and Carlotta soon became close friends with Cindy and Coral, and Gary became good friends with the Newby boys, especially Jess, who was closest in age. The stories we have heard from those two sets of kids had so much fun, I won't share them, but especially with other families still here in Calaveras today. During his time at CHS, Gary loved woodshop and made some beautiful pieces of furniture that he still has in his home today. The woodshop, many of you don't know, the woodshop teacher fell ill and they couldn't find a substitute teacher, so my dad took over teaching the class for like 3 periods. He graduated from Calaveras High School in 1970. Dad is a man of tradition, and he was really proud that all 3 of his kids graduated from Calaveras, and 2 of his grandchildren have graduated, and another one will be graduating this year. He prided himself on traditions of Calaveras. Dad became a cement mason after high school and worked with family and in various other companies over the years. He loved the craft and did amazing work. The Newby and Kuntz families were so close that eventually Gary's sister Michelle married Jack Newby, and Gary married the eldest daughter, Cindy Newby, in 1973. Gary also bought his first house on 5 acres in 1973 before he married Cindy. During his marriage, he became best friends with his father-in-law, Del Newby. The 2 of them were the funniest, most caring, loving, giving men I knew. In 1975, I was born. Then in 1978, my sister Sabrina. We had 5 acres of land with an orchard, a huge half-acre garden. We raised pigs for 4-H, and we raised drop calves. Dad loved to hunt and work on his land. One time, us girls worked on the land for days getting it ready. We planted a garden. Dad ran the tractor, but he wanted to get some manure. So he went to the turkey farm in Burson, came back with a huge truckload, dumped it all over our garden. Needless to say, the vegetables all came up burnt that year. We lived simply and had love, and we had our family. Dad worked hard as a cement mason, then worked on the land with our animals. We learned so much growing up from his example of hard work and determination. I remember Dad loving the honeymooners. He would always say, "To the moon, Alice, to the moon." Years ago, with dancing with the Calaveras Stars to Jailhouse Rock, and he did look like old Elvis. He loved to play cards with his siblings and their spouses at family gatherings. He would have everyone rolling with laughter over his jokes or stories. Us younger cousins would sit at a table and listen in because it was such an awesome thing to see the family laughter and hear old stories. They carried this on still to this day. And to my uncles and aunts and cousins, please keep doing this and save them a seat. It's a beautiful sight to see you all together and laughing, and he wouldn't want it any other way. On July 17, 1982, my dad lost his beloved brother-in-law, CHP officer Del E. Newby, in the line of duty. The tragedy hit our family hard, but it was also the inspiration to my dad to go to school and become a law enforcement officer like he had always wanted to do. My dad started taking classes at San Joaquin Delta College, and his family was very proud of him. His father-in-law, Del Newby, was too, but was worried because he had just lost his son. The following year, my grandpa, Newby, and my dad's best friend, died on October 29, 1983. Ironically, my dad died on the same day, the same way, and almost to the exact time. It's funny how God works when it's time to come home. My little brother Garrett was born in 1984. My dad was so proud to have a son to carry on his family name. It was one of the proudest days for him. My dad would work all day doing cement work to support his family and go to school at night. I would oftentimes see him going on only a few hours a week, a few hours of sleep after studying all night, and going to work before the sun was up. Dad entered the police academy and graduated in 1985. He started as a reserve officer and extra correctional officer at the Calaveras County Sheriff Department. He was living his dream. He loved his job, and right away he started touching people's lives. I have heard amazing stories of things he did early on as a deputy to help people. He was one of the original old lawmen who loved and did things in a way to always help people and do what was needed. In 1989, my parents divorced. He built the home he lives in himself in the early 90s. He was so proud of it because he built it with his two hands and with his family. During the years of 1995 and 1998, Gary's grandkids, Anthony, Kaylee, and Alex, were born. In 1995, my dad needed a kidney transplant. Many of you may not know that. His sister Michelle gave him one of her kidneys. It was the most amazing thing that he never forgot and was forever thankful for this beautiful gift of life. In 1998, Gary lost his beloved and highly respected father, George Kuntz. This was another huge loss of a great man who taught my dad to be the man he was. My dad highly respected and loved my grandpa, and my dad had always promised him that one day he would run for sheriff. He met Johanna and became friends in 1998, and they began dating in 2004. He loved Johanna very much, and she was an angel to our dad. She was his rock. We all love Johanna and thankful every day she came into our dad's lives. We are forever grateful for the addition of her into our family. We started many holiday traditions as a family with Johanna and Dad, ones that will never be the same without him, but we will try and... Dad had a grassroots campaign. That was what he kept telling us in every meeting. This is a grassroots effort. And we did it with friends and family. He was elected sheriff in 2010. Also in 2010, he got two more grandsons, Jacob and Lucas. He accomplished a lot during his career and worked on many high-profile cases. He reestablished the Sheriff's Volunteer Group, the promotion of the Residee Deputy Program, the opening of the Valley Springs Substation, and the completion of the new county jail. Dad co-founded the nonprofit Friends of the Calaveras County Office, which he was extremely proud of. He belonged to various groups, and he was always at meetings, and he kept his promises he made during campaign. In 2013, his last grandson was born, Brody. Dad ran for sheriff again in 2014 and was re-elected in his second term. Dad was the most amazing person. I know Dad wouldn't want us to sit here and cry. We know this because he was the funniest person most of us has ever known. He was the greatest storyteller. A lot of you know these two things by his ostrich story. He was more than just the sheriff. He was someone's partner, someone's true love, someone's father, someone's grandfather, someone's son, someone's brother, uncle, and cousin. He meant so much more to us than his badge. He was the rock of our family. We are so proud of him and everything he accomplished and everything he taught us on how to live our lives and how to always give to those in need and the morals and values he instilled in us. These are the things we raise his grandchildren on as well. Dad was friends with everyone he met, greeted people with a handshake or hug. He was full of integrity, honor, love, and pride. He was the most giving person I know, and he loved Calaveras County and the people of Calaveras County. Over last week, we have heard so many stories from community members, people that we do not even know, on how Dad touched their lives or saved their lives in a time of need. He was always helping everyone. I think almost everyone in the county had his cell phone number, but that is the way he wanted it. If they needed him, he was available. Dad built a legacy and was a pillar of this community, and he was the sheriff of the people. He will live on in his children and grandchildren, and we will make him proud. We love you, Dad, so much. Not sure how we ever get over losing you, but we will honor your great life in some way every day for the rest of our lives. I won't say goodbye, Dad, but until I see you again.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jim Macedo, and I'm a captain with the Calaveras County Sheriff's Office, and I'm also a friend of the Kuntz family. Just as the other speakers before me, I am very honored to be here speaking at Sheriff Gary Kuntz's funeral. The family asked that I give a tribute speech to Gary in so much as how he dealt with the community and worked with the community. Before I get into that, Johanna, Lillian, Amy, Sabrina, Garrett, Michelle, Daryl, Carlotta, and Harlan, on behalf of the men and women of the Calaveras County Sheriff's Office, I really want to offer our deepest condolences to all of you on your loss. I also want to thank you for sharing Gary with us for nearly 30 years. And by sharing, I know sometimes we were very selfish and it seemed like it was one-sided. Many of you knew Gary. Gary was easy to like. Gary would walk up to a complete stranger and make a very wise crack just to get the conversation started. For those people that were a little stiff or a little quiet, he would raise that level of wisecrack until you reacted. He was not hesitant to use foul language and that wisecrack, and he was not hesitant to look you up and down and come up with a nickname for you. As many of you also know, Gary liked weird people. Not only did he like normal people, he really liked weird people. Gary would bring weird people into his office, and they would sit there for hours and tell stories about spaceships and things that most of us would not have the patience for. And I have to tell you, I really admired Gary because he would just sit there and listen and not just be quiet. He would respond, and he would engage them in conversation. It amazed most of us, and quite frankly, some of us that had an office next to him, it scared us a little bit. When I would ask him, Gary, why do you let these folks in your office? You know, I know you're short on time, and he would often tell me, Jimmy, weird people make life interesting. He was right. Right, wrong, or otherwise, when it came to the members of the community, he would sit and let people talk about their issues. He was great at that. He was very patient, and we all admired how patient he was with those citizens. Gary also loved to joke, as has been previously noted. He loved to laugh, and he loved to tell stories. Some of those jokes and stories made us very nervous, especially those that were told on the second floor of the office. Those jokes were not politically correct, and at times we wondered if Gary was laughing at the joke or how nervous he made all of us. I can tell you some of our reactions were priceless. I have met very few people in my life that like to laugh and enjoy life more than Gary, whether he was working on cars with Johanna or by himself, playing golf with his friends, or just sitting down visiting with other family or friends. Gary always seemed to be laughing out loud and having a good time while he was away from work. Gary also tried to have a good time while he was at work. However, the years he became a sheriff, there were a lot of stress and a lot of pressure on him. But he managed to maintain a very positive attitude and keep joking and keep smiling. And again, those are all very sincere, genuine qualities he had, and those are the qualities that I most admire. Many of us have recently watched on the news as people question whether the American dream is alive today. Well, it is the American dream that allowed the grandson of German immigrant farmers to move to California and ascend to become the elected sheriff in what is the greatest state in our union. As previously mentioned, Gary was the grandson of German immigrants, and they immigrated to North Dakota. They farmed and worked hard. After Gary was born, they did move to California for a better opportunity for the family. And when Gary chose to begin his work, he chose to work with his hands just like his family. He was very proud of his days as a concrete mason. He reminded us of working from the bottom to the top quite frequently. He was also proud to be a deputy sheriff in Calaveras County. He was proud that he worked his way up from deputy sheriff to lieutenant, but he would most often talk about his times as a detective sergeant and the homicides and very interesting cases he worked. But he also talked about the people he met during those cases and investigations. Gary was very proud to be the sheriff of Calaveras County, and that came true probably, or came to light most time on Friday afternoons as the week and the days started to settle down. I would sit with Gary in his office, and he would talk about what it meant to him to be the sheriff of the county. And that's when nobody was around, and he would talk about what a duty and honor it was to take care of all of you. I do want to share one other story with all of you, and if the members of the Calaveras County Sheriff's Office would please pay particular attention. The story I want to share with you is about an incident that happened 200 years ago. 200 years ago, our nation was involved in a war. It was the War of 1812. The British wanted to make the United States a colony again. They did not want us to be our own separate country. The British were winning that war, and they were moving up the East Coast, destroying our newly created American cities. The British burned down Washington, D.C. and our White House. They moved up towards the Chesapeake Bay, and their sights were set on Baltimore. There was a massive amount of British warships, and things were not looking good for our new country. Right in the path of those British warships was Fort McHenry. Fort McHenry had a large American flag standing in front of that fort. Very, very similar to the flag that's draping our sheriff's coffin today. The British admiral was, was offended by our flag. And warned the Americans to take it down by dusk or else. As the sun went down, the bombardment from the ships and cannons started. The cannons and explosions and activity of war created so much dust and debris it was hard to tell if the flag was still there. As it turned dark, the flag was no longer visible to many of the soldiers. All night long, the fighting continued. The next morning, as the sun rose, some soldiers from outside the fort and others began looking for the flag. However, the air was still very dusty and dirty due to the battle that went throughout the night. In a clearing, the soldiers noticed something, and it was the American flag. There she stood. What was not visible to the soldiers outside the fort or the British were the bodies of the soldiers who perished keeping that flag standing tall. Ladies and gentlemen, we lost our sheriff. So right now, our flag is a little tattered and torn. However, tomorrow morning, the men and women of the sheriff's office will walk out the front door and we'll raise our American flag again. And we'll begin to heal just as our forefathers did. Sorry about that. Now for a bit of humor. Gary, being a proud German American, would give me a hard time for closing with this speech, mostly because it is an Irish blessing.